some evidence, some screenshots even of text messages you were getting way back before the premiere as you were calling out Blake Lively's bad.
What if Blake Lively's lawsuit is only scratching the surface? Judge Lyman is now questioning whether key evidence was obtained illegally, a twist that could alter the entire case. Reports suggest her team used a shell company to subpoena private messages, raising serious legal concerns. Even more shocking, explosive texts at the heart of the case may soon be revealed, and they could change everything we thought we knew.
And you were excited for the casting, and it sounds like you're just more annoyed that all this is distracted from what's important, the theme of the book and the movie, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You're not an anti-Blake content creator or part of any retaliation campaign?
No. I had people ask me if I was paid to speak positively on Justin or negatively on Blake. That's the thing too with the whole smear campaign. I don't know if anybody made a video about the marketing before I did. I know that kind of started after mine blew up. Nobody ever reached out to me. Nobody ever paid me. Nobody ever asked me to do that. Nobody put that opinion in my head. I saw the marketing when I was looking into, what's going on with them. I saw the marketing, went, and made that video. That's what happened.
Right. And as someone who watched your videos, you weren't being mean towards Blake. I mean, you were calling out the tone deaf approach, which I think is valid. And I'm looking at it objectively, which I know you're not trying to get in the middle or pick any sides. It's frustrating. It was interesting because we also spoke about the fact that maybe there was some big idea of like, look, let's not make this movie about DV because maybe we'll get more people in the theaters that way. And then they might see that type of relationship on screen. And then actually we got to them in a clever way, secret way. But as smart as that might have been, that's not what Blake was doing either, was it?
I don't think it was. No, that doesn't.
Blake Lively's lawsuit has taken a turn that few could have predicted. At the center of this unexpected twist is a name that, until now, had flown completely under the radar, Van Sen Incorporated. At first glance, it could be mistaken for a PR agency or a boutique legal consultancy. But it's neither. In reality, Van Sen is a shell company, crafted quietly by Lively's legal team with one very narrow mission, to file what's known as a John Doe lawsuit, giving them the legal authority to subpoena private communications. That tactic raised eyebrows immediately. John Doe filings aren't uncommon, but the way Van Sen was used breaks from the usual playbook. Analysts say this wasn't some paperwork technicality. It was a calculated move, aimed directly at Jennifer Abel's former publicist Stephanie Jones and her firm, Jones Works. Yet here's the catch. The subpoenas issued through Van Sen didn't follow standard transparency rules. None of the parties targeted were even notified when the subpoenas went out. In the world of litigation, that's a massive red flag. Legal critics argue that this was intentional, a deliberate effort to keep Abel and her team in the dark long enough to prevent any immediate challenge. One attorney familiar with the case even suggested that if the subpoenas had been openly filed under Lively's name, opposing counsel would have swiftly moved to quash them. By inserting Van Sen into the mix, her team bought themselves time and distance, shielding Blake's name from direct association. But that secrecy has now drawn the attention of Judge Lyman, who has publicly questioned whether this tactic crosses the line of legitimate legal practice. At a recent hearing, the judge pressed Lively's attorneys on whether the evidence collected through Van Sen, which reportedly includes text messages and other highly sensitive exchanges, can even be admitted in court. If it's ruled inadmissible, Lively's team could lose critical leverage, leaving them worse off than before and potentially facing blowback for the way the evidence was obtained. And the implications don't stop there. While shell companies have been used in litigation before, they almost always attract suspicion, especially when they appear to function as a smokescreen. Legal commentators are already raising alarms, suggesting Van Sen may have been a vehicle to launder evidence, essentially pushing questionable material through legal channels in order to dress it up as legitimate. If that claim sticks, it wouldn't just be a questionable strategy, it could be viewed as an ethical breach or even a violation of professional duty. The stakes are enormous. The communications gathered through Van Sen reportedly hold the power to reshape the entire narrative of this lawsuit. But here's the irony. The very method used to collect them could overshadow whatever revelations they contain. Even the most damaging messages won't matter if the court rules they were gathered improperly. For now, one thing is crystal clear. What began as a high-profile lawsuit has escalated into a potential legal firestorm. The fallout from this maneuver could ripple far beyond Blake Lively's personal case, raising bigger questions about how far attorneys are willing to stretch the rules when the spotlight is brightest. And with Judge Lyman scrutinizing every move, the outcome may not just shape this trial, but set a precedent for how future battles are fought in courtrooms under the glare of public attention.
Gotta look at these text messages. August 8th, continue. So you followed up. Unfortunately, yes, something is going to come out against Justin, and tragically, it isn't only from Blake, which hasn't actually come to fruition yet.
No.
Everyone else has stayed pretty quiet. Now, granted, they may be afraid given how everyone's reacted, but still, you'd think at this point they would have stood tall with Blake when everyone was on her side to really definitively set the tone, set the tone and the facts. But they seem to be avoiding it like the plague now, which makes me wonder, is that true? Or was Blake sort of getting these women to sort of agree with her due to her own power imbalance? You asked where it's come from, and it's a standard, oh, my family's in the industry, blah, 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 blah. Take it as a grain of salt. But it all feels very manipulative, and it feels exactly like the things they're accusing Justin of when I see this. That's why it was so shocking to me, because they're claiming, oh, he's playing dirty. But here we are on August 8th before any of it's going down. I mean, honestly, I ask you, no wonder he hired a PR crisis person, right? If this is the kind of stuff that was out there and the things that are bubbling over, and they're going to start putting some stuff that he disagrees with, whether it happened or not, he's going to disagree. They clearly disagreed throughout the film. Do you believe he had the right to hire a team to try to combat the PR and clearly go against the secret tactics that Blake was clearly going to do and able to afford?
Well, I mean, like I said to you the last time that we spoke, I can't speak at all to whether or not her allegations of what happened on set are true. I don't want to, especially if they are. I wasn't there. I don't know that. However, when it comes to smear campaign and retaliation being the criticism that she received online, that is what I wholeheartedly believe is organic. If that's what we're speaking about, yeah, I'm sure, I would have hired a PR team too. Like if I didn't start that and this was organic and this was people's genuine, valid criticism, that's not me doing anything wrong. That's not me coming at you. This is valid criticisms of a mistake that you made and that you're doubling down on, essentially, right? I mean, there's multiple aspects to the lawsuits that are happening now. There's what's happened on set. There's the smear campaign and the online criticism that she received, which is separate than what happened on set. And then there's all of the rollout that's...
What could possibly be hiding inside those text messages that Blake Lively's team felt the need to chase them down in secret? That question is now at the center of debate surrounding the subpoena filed through Van Sen Incorporated, the shadowy shell company linked to Lively's legal strategy. The subpoena zeroed in on Stephanie Jones, a seasoned publicist with direct ties to the alleged retaliation campaign driving this lawsuit. According to people close to the case, the messages may show coordinated efforts to discredit or isolate a former associate. If true, that would be explosive evidence. But the controversy doesn't end with the contents. The bigger storm is over the method of collection. Vansen's involvement already looked suspicious, but now the legal spotlight is on whether those communications were gathered lawfully in the first place. Ethics experts haven't minced words. If private conversations were obtained without proper notice, or if the parties targeted weren't given a fair chance to respond, the subpoenas could be deemed invalid. That would make the texts not just ethically questionable, but legally worthless. In fact, subpoenaing communications through a shell company with no transparency might even cross into breaching fiduciary duties, a violation that carries its own risks for Lively's attorneys. Judge Lyman has made his concerns clear. In recent hearings, he directly pressed the legal team on whether these subpoenas crossed the line, raising the possibility that some messages were accessed or concealed improperly. His warning was sharp. The court won't weigh the relevance of the communications until their legality is firmly established. Put simply, the entire case could hinge not on what the texts say, but on how they were obtained. That distinction is critical. Courts take a hard line against evidence collected outside proper channels. When privacy protections or due process are ignored, evidence isn't just weakened, it can be thrown out entirely. Think of a sweater. Tug one loose thread and the whole fabric unravels. That's the risk here. If these messages are ruled inadmissible, Lively's legal team doesn't just lose a piece of leverage, their entire narrative could collapse in court, and the danger extends even further. Even if the messages really do describe a retaliation plot, their credibility could be undermined by the manner in which they were secured. Should the judge find that misconduct occurred, the ripple effect may go beyond this trial. Legal analysts warn it could set a precedent for stricter evidence standards across the Second Circuit, raising the bar for future high-profile disputes. There's also the looming threat of counteraction. If the court rules that Lively's attorneys abused the process, they could face serious pushback, from claims of improper legal conduct to possible lawsuits alleging privacy violations. In that outcome, the very evidence meant to strengthen her case could flip into a liability, fueling even more litigation. Meanwhile, this battle isn't confined to the courtroom. With a case this public, every legal maneuver is mirrored in the court of public opinion, where perception can be as powerful as the verdict itself. At its core, this fight isn't just about text messages, it's about ethics, credibility, and who controls the larger story. If the evidence survives scrutiny, it could reshape the case. But if it crumbles, everything Blake Lively's legal team has built may unravel with it.
Baldoni's attorney, Friedman, is not, he's very smart and tactically savvy. And this was a tactical decision to not amend the complaint, which the judge told him how to fix it and come back and have a shot. And they decided not to do it. And the decision not to follow, basically these underlying hints of like, hey, if you really want to keep this claim, this is how you fix it. There's one of two decisions that were made. One, they didn't have the facts to satisfy what the judge wanted to keep those possible remaining claims. Or two, the other possible thing is that they're just like, listen, we're winning the PR war. People are upset about this. Let's just stop complaining, worrying about the pleadings, and let's just get into discovery. And let's really get into this case and make our blows that way instead of delaying this because the judge, did something we didn't expect. And the only other third thing, and you keep bringing up appeal, is that there's a chance, although these are very rarely granted, that they could try to do what's called a writ, which is, go to the appeal before you're kind of supposed to. But I think that would be a waste of time. But it's a really interesting tactical decision not to at least try, because the judge kind of like told them, like, this is what's missing. And if you have this, chances are I won't kick these two out. And they decided not to do that, which means either they don't have it or they decided, let's just get into discovery. Let's start really making real pain, which is getting into, tell Blake that she has to be deposed and, depose everybody around her, get that kind of pain, because people don't like that. And that may encourage other things to happen that Baldoni and Friedman decided they do want at the end versus try to like resuscitate their complaint.
Well, let's get into that because I'm glad you brought it there because exactly. Okay, so now we got Blake's deposition, which was supposed to be yesterday, but it sounds like it may have been moved. Still trying to find that out, confirm that. But what is that enough for her to want to settle? Is a settlement now the next key, you think, Chris? Is that what you think Brian's maybe doing now that Taylor Swift's texts are relevant? Is that going to be a scare tactic that maybe is a win enough that Justin's team think, you know what, we're going to get her here? Or is there a version of this where Blake, now that she has the control, it's her case only, couldn't she just pull the rug and say, you know what, out of respect of all these people who are being dragged in needlessly, I'm withdrawing to save face? And wouldn't that just end all of this without him getting the chance to even defend himself in court? What are the next steps that are actually going to benefit Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were looking at this earlier, I assume both sides were looking for an off-ramp here to, get out of this with dignity and both claim victory. But with this ruling, there's a component that goes along with it, which is a mandatory fee shifting. So all of her reasonable attorney's fees that she incurred in resisting the complaint that Justin and Wayfair brought against her and the others, the court has to order Justin and Wayfair to reimburse her for all those attorney's fees under Civil Code Section 47.1. That is going to be a huge amount of money, and I can't imagine she's going to walk away from that. So that just made it so much more difficult for just some settlement to happen without him potentially reaching into his pocket and pay. Yes, and I agree totally with Ron that maybe this is going to just be a discovery war and go get this information and publicize it and embarrass her. And but the problem is that she can just show up for that depot and be uncooperative. Eventually, she will be forced to answer the questions and could be penalized for not cooperating, but she could delay it. So I think it's very difficult to get a walk away unless there is something out there that is going to be so embarrassing to her that it's more important to her ego to drop this case than to pursue it. And you got to remember who we're dealing with. I mean, this is the person who set him up, at least it looks like, set him up with these claims, went after him very aggressively. And then for all of a sudden, if that's truly who she is, for her to like change her stripes and saying, oh, I'm going to be a good person and do the right thing. And we may be asking for too much.
So if she drops the case, then who has to pay for it?
Well, right now, I'm sorry. The next step is he's going to have to pay her for the attorney's fees that she.
Right, but so then I'll go to you, Ron. Why wouldn't she just drop it then at this point and play like I said? Well, all too many friends are getting involved. It's getting too ugly. I want to stand up for myself, but it's too much. Couldn't she play that card and then suddenly?
Before the film could even make its way into theaters, something unexpected landed in the inbox of Nadia G. Reid. Nadia, a TikTok creator known for her sharp, unfiltered takes on Hollywood marketing, had been calling out the movie's promotional stumbles in a series of viral posts. Her critiques struck a chord, racking up millions of views. But instead of ignoring her commentary, someone connected to the project reached out directly, and the message carried a tone that was hard to ignore. According to Nadia, the sender urged her to delete the videos, adding a cryptic warning, "A lot happened on set that will eventually come out. But if I were you, I'd take those videos down." The note then shifted in an odd direction, insisting that Blake Lively was still sweet and innocent and even pointing out that her husband had been present to protect her. For Nadia, the timing was suspicious. Her videos had already gained significant traction, spotlighting what she saw as tone-deaf marketing choices. She made it clear she wasn't part of any campaign or coordinated pushback, just a regular creator offering her perspective. Yet the message suggested otherwise, framing her posts as harmful to women who had already endured difficult experiences behind the scenes. To Nadia, it didn't read like dialogue, it felt like an attempt to silence her. Why reach out to her at all? One theory stands out: control. In today's Hollywood, online critics and TikTok voices shape audience perception in real time. By contacting Nadia, someone involved with the film may have been trying to rein in a narrative spiraling beyond their grasp. And it wasn't just about her. The warning could have been intended as a message to other creators too: criticize at your own risk. That's where the strategy becomes questionable. The message tried to paint Blake as a vulnerable figure in need of protection, blurring the line between PR defense and outright manipulation. Experts often caution against heavy-handed tactics like this. Social media thrives on authenticity, and once audiences feel they're being strong-armed or misled, trust is nearly impossible to rebuild. What makes this even riskier is that the message now exists as evidence. Whether it was officially sanctioned or not, it left behind a digital trail that could become relevant if legal proceedings surrounding Blake Lively escalate. In that context, what began as a clumsy attempt at damage control could be scrutinized as part of a broader effort to suppress criticism and steer public perception. Nadia's videos are no longer just entertainment commentary. They've become part of a larger conversation about how far Hollywood will go to protect its image and what happens when independent voices refuse to play along. If this warning ever surfaces in court, it could shift from an awkward PR misstep to a critical piece of the puzzle. Because in the end, this isn't just about a single film or one online critic. It's about who controls the narrative and who gets silenced in the process.
She had some evidence, some screenshots even of text messages you were getting way back before the premiere as you were calling out Blake Lively's bad PR. Now, the reason this stood out for me, this was kind of shocking. We're absolutely going to make this part of the doc, and I was going to sort of save it, but I was like, I don't really want to save it. There's so much important stuff out there. I want to make sure everybody knows what happened here. So that way, if anybody else got messages like this, please reach out to me, share them with me privately, whatever you want to do, because this just feels super shady. Now, before we go to you now to explain, I just want to, here's where it sort of started. You had a couple TikToks, innocent TikToks, very neutral, in my perspective. I watched them all again, just calling out, well, there's some weird drama, and you literally call, he's an unproblematic king, she's an unproblematic queen. You were team everybody, maybe a little shade at Colleen Hoover, because I guess you didn't love parts of the book, but all very neutral and sort of you're very well spoken the way you did it. And then as you sort of got into it further, you called out the PR marketing, which a lot of people did. The fact that Justin was in the background and now it's all fun and fluffy, as you're saying here, and it's not raising awareness to the heart of the film. A very valid thing that a lot of people were noticing. And you were one of the earliest TikToks that I could see too that was sort of calling this out. Now, you netted almost 4 million views off this TikTok, correct?
Yeah, a little over that, I think.
Yeah, and so you, as I go through and we're scrolling through, so the TikToks, it definitely blew up. And you didn't like lean in and start making your channel and it ends with us trauma channel. You did do some follow-ups, but as you know, this is it. She did about 6 or so TikToks on the topic as they were exploding, as everybody was. And what's interesting is because it exploded, can you set this up before we go to the screenshot? You started getting messages from people asking you to pull the video, correct?
I did, yeah. Yeah, I got a message, it was prior to opening weekend, basically telling me that these things were going to come out about Blake Lively, that she was going to be a victim and that all the women on the set were actually victims, and that the last thing I would want to do would be to speak negatively on a victim, so that I should take my video down, and basically that allegations were going to come out against.
Everything reached a boiling point when Judge Lyman delivered what can only be described as a courtroom bombshell, leaving Blake Lively's legal team scrambling to maintain their footing. For weeks, there had been whispers about the unusual subpoena tied to Vansen Incorporated. But when the judge turned his attention to the way those private text messages were obtained, the stakes of the case shifted dramatically. His concerns were far from hypothetical. Lyman openly questioned whether the communications had been gathered improperly or even fraudulently, and what the consequences should be if that were true. At the heart of his scrutiny was the method used to collect messages from publicist Stephanie Jones and her PR firm, executed through subpoenas filed under Vansen Incorporated, a shell company. Observers noted that Lively's team appeared to sidestep standard legal transparency requirements, raising serious ethical and procedural questions. The judge didn't mince words. He suggested that this approach might have allowed evidence to be collected under what one expert described as the color of law, a tactic that dresses up questionable methods to make them appear legitimate on paper. If such practices were proven, the repercussions could be severe, not just the exclusion of evidence, but potential lawsuits for abuse of process or privacy violations. The implications could stretch far beyond this single trial. Legal analyst Omar, widely known as the tilted lawyer, warned that allowing these tactics to slide could set a troubling precedent. It would give celebrities and high-profile figures a blueprint for prying into private communications through anonymous shell companies, he cautioned. This can't become standard practice. Left unchecked, it would open the door to widespread privacy violations across the industry. Now the pressure is squarely on Judge Lyman to draw a firm line. His ruling could reshape how high-profile litigation is conducted in Hollywood. For Blake Lively, the stakes couldn't be higher. If the court deems the messages inadmissible, her legal team loses a central pillar of their strategy. Overnight, the narrative could flip, recasting Lively from a victim seeking justice to a figure accused of overreach. Abuse of process claims carry serious weight, and the court of public opinion can be unforgiving when ethics are perceived to have been bent. Inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Judge Lyman's pointed questions about the origins of the evidence cut through the usual formalities, turning the hearing into something more akin to theater than routine procedure. His relentless scrutiny, combined with the lingering mystery surrounding Vansen Incorporated, marked a decisive turning point in the case. Yet one question looms larger than any procedural ruling: how much damage has already been done to Blake Lively's carefully curated reputation, and can it be repaired once the legal dust settles?
Blurred out who sent this. I'm not trying to get that, but with your permission, can I show this screenshot?
Yep.
So she shared with me sort of what was said, just because and I'm grateful you did, because I think now that everything's come out, I think all this should come out. This is the timing of this on August 8th. Hey there, you don't know me, and please never post this anywhere. Oh well. But for your own awareness, I just thought I'd message you. A lot happened on set that will eventually come out. But if I were you, I'd take those videos down. I can promise you wholeheartedly that the female cast members are victims. That's all I can say. But to put any negative press on people going through it is just probably the last thing they need. Again, obviously you had zero idea, but just wanted to give you a heads up. It will come out in their own time, but Blake is as sweet and innocent as ever, and you are correct that her husband absolutely is there to protect her. Now, What was your reaction when you got this at first? I imagine part of you was a little concerned.
Yeah, I definitely absolutely was concerned, especially as my stake in this is obviously I was a book talker and read the book and was following the movie, but I'm also in my own personal life an advocate for intimate partner violence. So she's correct. The last thing that I would want to do would be add stress on a victim or a survivor. However, the things that I had been talking about to do with the film were the marketing. And that had nothing to do with whatever happened behind the scenes, whatever happened between Blake and Justin. That didn't change the inappropriate way that the film was marketed to me. So I waited and saw what was going to happen, but I didn't stop speaking on what I was speaking about.
This case has never been just about legal filings or courtroom procedure. At its core, it's a battle over perception, how Blake Lively is seen by the public. Her legal team has worked tirelessly to cast her as the target of unfair attacks, yet their aggressive tactics have sparked accusations of hypocrisy. The contradiction is impossible to ignore. Blake is presented as a figure under siege, while her team appears willing to push ethical boundaries to silence critics. That tension came to a head with Vansen Incorporated, the now infamous shell company created to file a John Doe lawsuit, enabling subpoenas of private communications. What might have been a clever legal maneuver has instead drawn intense scrutiny, raising serious questions about whether Lively's team may have breached fiduciary duties, the legal obligation to act transparently and in good faith. Suddenly, the issue isn't just about winning a case. It's about whether this is a pursuit of justice or an attempt to control the narrative. If Judge Lyman rules the process abusive, the consequences extend far beyond the courtroom. The legal setback could permanently tarnish Blake's public image. Social media has become a battlefield, with staunch supporters defending her as a woman standing up for herself, while skeptics point to the tactics as intimidation. Some argue that the maneuvers were less about resolving disputes and more about silencing dissent. That perception is dangerous for any public figure, especially one whose career has been built on a careful balance of elegance and relatability. Hollywood has seen this pattern before. Public opinion often carries more weight than legal outcomes. Careers are frequently shaped not by the final ruling, but by how battles are fought. Stars caught in high-profile disputes walk a precarious tightrope, defending themselves in court while remaining appealing to their fan base. What makes Blake's situation uniquely precarious is the constant public scrutiny. Every questionable move is unfolding in real time, amplified by an online audience deeply attuned to Hollywood spin. One striking example involves TikTok influencer Nadia G. Reid, who publicly revealed that she received a message warning her to take down her viral critiques of It Ends With Us. The note wasn't casual. It carried an ominous undertone, referencing on-set drama while portraying Blake as sweet, innocent, and protected by her husband. To Reid, it felt less like a conversation and more like intimidation. The attempt backfired spectacularly. Instead of silencing criticism, the message itself became evidence of a broader effort to control the narrative. A single creator's commentary transformed into a public relations problem, fueling suspicion about how far Lively's team or associates might go. This brings the focus to a broader question: what does this controversy mean for Hollywood as a whole? If a star of Blake Lively's stature can face backlash for allegedly blurring ethical lines, what does that reveal about industry practices? Judge Lyman's scrutiny of Vansen Incorporated could set a landmark precedent, reshaping how evidence is gathered in celebrity lawsuits. A ruling against her team might not only derail the case but signal a new era of accountability, forcing stars and attorneys to reconsider using shadowy tactics. The stakes are enormous. For Blake, the outcome could redefine her career trajectory regardless of the trial's end. For Hollywood, it serves as a wake-up call, a reminder of the delicate balance between protecting an image and crossing ethical boundaries. With courtroom drama intensifying and the public gaze unblinking, one question looms over everything: how far is too far when it comes to defending a reputation? As Judge Lyman's decision approaches, this case has evolved into more than just a legal dispute. It has become a mirror reflecting Hollywood itself, an industry where influence can blur into manipulation and where the costs of secrecy may finally outweigh the benefits.